Welcome to Club Fitting Chronicles.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Club Fitting Chronicles. You're stuck with Gene because Josh is having to work and is not available, and he's got all kinds of stuff going between his master's program, coaching on the golf team at college, doing some playing, and working. So beside all that, he's busy. So you're stuck with me tonight. And first of all, I want to thank all of our loyal listeners. We have had 19,000 downloads since we have started this endeavor. We are heard in 44 different countries. I think that it's like 530 different cities around the world. And just to think, when we started off, we were happy to get 100 downloads over the course of a month. And now we get about 1,000 downloads a month. So thank you. Thank you. And please keep sharing us with your friends and golf enemies and golf friends of mine and all that other stuff. Really appreciate it. Also, got an interesting email this week from Scott, and we were talking about some launch conditions and launch angle stuff. And one of the things I want to caution all of you on, a lot of us get really number crunchy. We're trying to get all these numbers, and we think we're going to be able to affect our swings. Now, I want to tell you a quick little story. Had a guy who was working at trying not to come over the top because he had an app on his phone, and he had been getting his readings off of that app on his phone, and it was telling him he was coming from outside to in at something like 10 degrees, and he had gotten it narrowed down to he was only doing it like now 5 or 6 degrees, and he was looking for help. And is there any equipment stuff that we could do that would help him? So he's warming up, and I'm watching him, and I'm going, he is not coming from the outside. He is coming from inside. Because his complaint was coming from outside, he was hitting a lot of stuff, pull left with a hook. And I'm watching, and I go over and I say, well, get your app out and let's have you swing some with your app. And again, he got the same numbers. And then I said, let's look at what TrackMan is telling us. And TrackMan was telling us that he had the face was like 4 degrees closed at impact. He was swinging from the inside, like I think it was 4 degrees inside or 3 degrees inside. So anyways, he was producing a pull hook, and he was working hard at trying to eliminate his swinging from the outside, which he was really then trying to come more from the inside, which was simply helping him hit the ball further left. So one of the things I want to caution you, the thing I pointed out to him, my TrackMan costs $25,000, and it's got a lot of tour usage. A lot of tour players, religiously are using it. So I have great confidence in it. $500 app, $1,000, $2,000 other piece of equipment. Yeah, could be giving me good information, or maybe not. One of the things that you need to do is kind of like test it. Go to other places and see, do you get the same kind of readings? Because we would have different companies who would try to sell us, $10,000, $15,000 machines. Well, after we had TrackMan, and I would just run the two side by side, and the numbers would be different. And I knew my ball flight. I knew, when I hit the ball, what that ball was going to do. And sometimes the other machine wasn't telling me the same thing that I would see on the golf course for that swing. So be careful about trying to swing to fit your app or whatever it is that you're using. Rely more on what you're seeing. Don't worry about what the app is telling you. Rely more on the swing. So, what are the OEMs offering to mess up your game for this year? I was doing a deep dive, and I went to one of the local golf shops, and I was going to go, sit down clubs and look at the drivers, how open are the drivers and all that stuff, and everything is locked up. Why? Because the starting price is $650. And they've been having a lot of people come in browsing and running out the door with 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers. Well, that's a lot of money. So they've gone to locking them up, and, I wasn't going to be able to convince somebody, I am going to be doing a podcast and I'm going to tell them how bad your equipment is. So can I look at it? Probably wasn't going to go well. So things I want you to understand first about the golf industry. Drivers, they're always telling you we have faster ball speeds. Core, coefficient of restitution, was established in 1998. 0.83, okay? And then they changed in 2004 to CT time. CT time, maximum time, is 258 or 257. I don't remember which it is. But, okay? Those rules were established. In the 257 or 58 matches the core of 0.83. It's just done in a different way. It used to be shot a golf ball at the face and you measured how fast it came off the face. And now you got a little pendulum and the pendulum is computerized, dropped off onto the face, and it measures how long does it take before it bounces off the face. Okay. So that rule has been established. If it goes higher than 257, 258, if it goes higher than 0.83, what is that called? Legal. Okay. So when they're telling you we're getting more ball speed, it may be fractional ball speed. If I happen to hit it high on the toe, a quarter inch off the tip of the club, why am I hitting it there? I shouldn't be. That's not the ideal place. Nobody puts a little X there and says, hit it up here, because the ball speed, even though it's going to be really low, is going to be less low. That makes no sense. Okay. So, movable weights. They're still working with movable weights. If you're swinging under 110 miles an hour, generally speaking, it takes moving 30 grams of weight. Nobody was moving had 30 gram weights that you could move to a different location. And again, it only works if I hit it repeatedly on that same spot with that 30 grams. Am I going to notice a ball flight difference? Okay. You see, the adjustable drivers. I was playing with the guy a couple days ago. He had his adjustable 9-degree driver, and I set it down, set my driver down next to it. I said, which one looks like it has more loft, your 9-degree driver or my 10.25? And my 9-degree. Yes, that's because it's not 9 degrees. It's about 13 degrees, 4 degrees open. If you get that club squared somehow, miraculously, or if you can set it in the right position to get it at square at that point, we'll play like a 9-degree driver. But most golfers can't do that. Most golfers don't know to do that. He was hitting everything where? High and right. It was working perfectly. I was on Google and I was chatting, and I can't remember which company it was. One of the companies, I was pretending to be a normal customer. And I was asking normal questions like, when you set this at the highest loft, what is how open is the face? And And it took about 3 minutes to get a response. And the response was it was still about 1 degree open. Okay. So if it's 1 degree open at the highest loft, which is going to square the face up the most, at the lowest loft, it's going to be more than 1 degree open. Again, who is that good for? Not sure. Not sure that that's good for most people. Other things, you see a lot of stuff with low spin rate drivers. I did a little Google dive. If I'm swinging at 90 miles an hour, I'm hitting down on the ball. That's going to cause spin. Okay. I'm hitting down on the ball. I'm going to create about 3,700 RPM worth of spin, assuming I'm hitting it somewhere very close to center of gravity. The carry distance is going to be about 191 yards. The total rollout is going to be about 215. And my loft on the club face at that point of impact would be around 14 degrees. If I'm swinging 90 miles an hour and I am no downward attack angle, no upward, it's neutral 0 degree angle of attack, drops my spin rate to 3,000 RPMs. And carry distance is now 203, and the rollout, again, firm fairway 228. And my launch would be, the loft on the face would be somewhere around 15. If I'm swinging up 5 degrees, my spin rate's down to 2,600. So I've lost 1,100 using the same driver. What is the difference in spin rate? Hitting up on the ball. Going and getting a low spin rate driver. Again, what does low spin rate mean? It means it's less than it was last year. Well, if hitting it on center in their robot testing, it was 2,900. Is 2,850 less? Yes. And they can then say it's a lower spinning driver. Is that 50 RPM going to matter to you? No. So again, don't buy into well, it's a lower spinning driver, so I will get more out of it. It depends. Well, you got to hit it on the same spot time after time after time after time. Number two, if you're hitting down on the ball, you're still spinning it too much. You're not hitting up on the ball, then you're producing more spin than you would probably need. And again, it doesn't mean you stand like this so that you can launch the ball up in the air. It's ball placement, putting the ball, I use like my armpit, a little bit of spine tilt, swinging up, and not doing it with the 46-inch driver shaft. Okay, that's the other thing that still is out there. 46 inches, 45 and a half was the shortest driver I saw. And I went to about 7 different companies. But the biggest thing is they only want I wouldn't pay $650 for any golf club. Okay. And it doesn't cost that much to produce. If you wanted a specialty shaft, because again, most of them come with one option. Some of them have 2 options, and that was more based upon the flex that you needed versus giving you a choice. But most of the drivers were starting at around $890 with a upgraded shaft. And we'll talk more about upgraded shafts and the costs when we talk about irons. But $890 for, I'm looking at my bag. I don't think I have $890 worth of stuff in my bag, including the golf balls and rain gear and all the other stuff that's in there, my range finder. You don't need to spend $890 to hit a drive out somewhere in the right rough. Okay? They're too long. They're too long. Swing weight on that thing is only D2. Again, I'm 68 and a half years old, and my swing weight is D3 and a half at 44 and a quarter inches. Okay? You need to have shorter so you can hit it on center. Someday put a piece of masking tape on the face when you go to the driving range. Hit 4 or 5 balls and then look, how many impacts do you see? Do you see one and it's always dead on center, just slightly above middle? Or are they all over the face? Part of the reason they're all over the face, it's too long. Let's see, other things that that I was looking at. That was pretty much it with drivers. Again, it boggles my mind. Players clubs, and I'm going to give you some summaries of irons. So 4 irons run from 18.5 degrees to 22 degrees. Now the 22 degrees is in a players club. The 18.5 is for, you guessed it, the 20 handicap. One of the first things I learned in club fitting, anything less than 28 degrees starts getting harder to hit. Anything below 24 degrees, most golfers take it out of their bag. The length, okay, that's a 4 iron. A 4 iron should be 38.5, and it is in players clubs. In the average golfers clubs, 39 and a half. Who is that good for? I cannot think of a person that's good for. 1 inch over. I'm 5'9" and 3/4. I claim that 3/4 because I need to. But if I was fitting somebody, if they're not over 6'3", 6'4", I am not thinking about even considering lengthening a 4 iron that's 38 and a half inches long. You don't need to make the long clubs longer. You need, if anything, to make the short clubs longer. Most of these sets, by the time you get to the 8 iron, they're back to traditional lengths in their irons. So they're not making the short clubs longer, they're making the long clubs longer. Why? With the hope that while you're hitting a ball off the mat and you don't notice that you're hitting the mat way early and the ball is rocketing into the net at the golf simulator, at whomever you're getting fit or trying clubs out with, and of course the spin rate has dropped dramatically because you hit the mat first, and the ball's going forever. It must be the best club ever. No, please, you've heard enough of this preaching. It is not going to work out well for most golfers. To make a club 1 inch longer is just making it like 10 times harder to hit on center repeatedly. 5 iron lengths, 21 to 24 inches, or 21 to 24 degrees. Who's playing the 24? That's in the players club. Who's playing the 21? Joe Average. Lengths, 38.75 to 38, so a half an inch or 3/4 of an inch longer than, quote, standard. Again, I shared with you, I fit my friend Cameron many years ago. He's 6'9", and we made his longest club in his bag, I think, is a 5-iron, and we made that like 1.5 inches long. Now, his shorter clubs are about 2.5 inches long because we stepped him down by 3/8 of an inch. And the last few clubs, we didn't step down. But we didn't need to make the long club super long because all that does is make it super hard to hit. 6-irons are 24 to 27 degrees, 38.125 to 37.5. Again, who's playing the 37.5? The player. Who's playing the longer ones? The non-player. And it just continues. And it does not make sense to me. Women's clubs for years and years and years were always 1 inch shorter was the standard starting spot. So like a 5-iron would have been 37 inches. A lot of the ladies' clubs are almost mirroring the men's clubs in lengths. And they're doing it in lofts. They don't have the club head speed to get the ball high enough up into the air to get the ball to travel. They can roll it a long way. Again, if you're playing a golf course that is, like asphalt, and you don't have to worry about traps and you don't have to worry about water and things like that, I guess that would work. You could, it's like mini golf. But if you're playing a golf course where you got to get the ball elevated, it's going to be a challenge. What does it do? It teaches you to do wrong things to get the ball up in the air. I work with a wonderful high school boy, and he has some challenges, and he would go out and practice in his 8 grass areas around the neighborhood, and he would figure out ways. He thought success meant getting the ball higher up into the air, so he came up with ways of getting the ball higher up into the air. Of course, it wasn't going anywhere where we want the ball to go. It was going 40 yards left of the target, or it was going 30 yards right of the target, but it wasn't going at the target. And it was simply him trying to get the ball higher into the air. Well, why didn't it get higher into the air? Part of the reason his club head speed isn't that high. So it's not, we would go to the range and he would want me to hit a ball, and then he would try to hit one as high as mine, and it wasn't getting near as high as mine. I got to figure out how to hit it high. No, it's not a matter of figuring out how to hit it higher. What we have to do is we're going to eventually develop more club head speed that will get the ball traveling up on that line longer, and because it's going faster, and it will get higher into the air. Again, the shafts, I was just looking in general. What is everybody putting into a golf club? 90 grams. That's not bad. I use 90-gram shafts. But the swing weight is between D1 and D. I was playing with the gentleman on Sunday, and his club head speed was probably, let's see, 8-iron. He hit his 8-iron 175 yards. Okay. Now, he wasn't hitting it straight, and he wasn't hitting it very consistent, but it would eventually travel that far. And we were talking, and I had joined them late in the round, and I was, can I see your clubs for a minute? I hold out his club, and I'm looking at the shaft, and okay, 90 grams. I grab my club, which has a 87-gram shaft in it, and I hand it to him. I said, which one do you feel more head? And as soon as he picked, I can really feel the head on this. Yeah, it's a D6.5. Built up his 8-iron to about D6.5, and on the last hole, I did this on the 17th hole. On the 18th hole, he's about 180 out, and he hit the ball straight over the flag. First time he hit the ball at the flag, at the green, all day that I was playing with him. Again, what was the difference? He could feel the head. Most of the golf companies, they've been at D2 since the 1960s with the 130-gram shaft. Okay? It gets only lighter if you put a graphite shaft in it, because it would cost more money to make a heavier head, because they would have to have one for steel and one for graphite. Again, I probably would make somewhere in the neighborhood of 250 to 350, including reshafting of iron sets a year, maybe more than that even. How many came out? Did we make a D2? Probably less than 1 or 2%. Most people need more head feel. And again, this has been a number that's been around. I would have people, I had a gentleman once come into my shop looking at the wall, trying to find a D2 somewhere. And I stopped and, excuse me, sir, can I help you find something? He goes, yeah, my buddy said I need D2. Okay, that's not a thing you buy. That's a swing weight. And he brought his clubs in, and his clubs had a lightweight graphite shaft, and they were probably, I remember, something like C9 or something like that. And so I slapped some lead tape on him, got him to D2. He goes, oh, that feels a little better. I slapped some more, and he goes, oh, this is really good. What was it? It's probably D4. D4 was probably the average that we would build clubs to. We had a couple people, we were building them at D8, and that was not moment of inertia waiting and getting the shortest clubs up to D8. This was all the clubs were at D8 in his irons, but that's unusual. But D4 is not an unusual thing. Moment of inertia waiting off of that number of D4 for the longest club and moving up a half a swing weight. That's not an unusual thing. Most golfers hit the ball more consistently that way. Let's see, what else? Hybrids. I was looking at hybrids, they're doing the same thing kind of with hybrids that they've always done. A little bit longer than what they need to be. Most of the time, most of the hybrids are using 60-gram shafts. A couple of them had 70-gram shafts. Again, I'm an older person, and in my clubs, I have 73-gram shafts with I think it's 11 grams of lead tape on the shaft, with the midpoint being at 14 inches, so it's not changing the swing weight. It's just adding more mass to the shaft. Why? Because my tendency is I get too quick. Okay, because I want to hit this thing a long way, and sometimes if you're like me, you fight getting a little bit quick with that lighter weight. So making them a little tiny bit heavier. I usually, the rule of thumb, if I'm with a 90-gram shaft, I'm thinking about 75 to 80 grams in a hybrid. Might be a little bit more, but generally not less than 75 grams. Fairway woods would then drop down to like maybe 70, 65, maybe if it's a, wispy type of person, but if it's a normal, strong looking person, usually around 70 grams is probably a good number to think about. And then, driver shaft, the lightest shaft in the bag. But a lot of the companies, they're putting the same shaft in all the woods and also their driver. And for a lot of golfers, not enough weight. Okay, because one, I'm putting up on a peg. The others, it's sitting on the ground. And if it's really light, most golfers pull out of the swing. They stand up because they're swinging so hard. Why? Because it's so light and they don't feel a whole lot. Same thing with fairway woods, lightweight shafts, long, a couple of them 43 and a quarter, 43.5 for anything like 16 degrees or less. Again, when I started playing my 3-wood, 42 inches. How long is my 3-wood now? 42 inches. Why? Because I don't want to miss, Josh, he's 6'1". How long is his 3-wood? 42 inches. Why? Because he doesn't want to miss. Okay. Does it cause you to lose any distance? Maybe 3 yards. But then again, if I'm hitting it on center all the time, I'm not losing anything. I'm more consistent. So again, things to think about. They're making them longer. They're generally making them lighter. Why? Because the rule of thumb, if it's lighter, you will swing it faster. And if you happen to hit the ball somewhere near the center of the club face, it will go further. You will go, oh my goodness, I will expect that every time. Of course, that won't happen, but your expectations is it should, because I did it once. And then when it doesn't happen, it's my fault. I must not have done something right. No, the club's too light. It's too long. It's too hard to hit. So things to think about. But the biggest thing, I was looking at putters even. Average putter, 35 inches. Occasionally you would see some 34s. If you paid a lot of money, you could get them down to 33. But the big question, again, I am 5'9" 3/4, and I use a 32-inch putter. Why? Because when I stand to putt, my arms hang straight down under my shoulders, and where that point is, I grip the putter, and it's in the right position, and I just make my swing, rock my shoulders back and forth, and I am successful. If it's 35 inches, what does that cause me to do? It causes me to kind of reach out like this. My eyes are now 6 inches, 8 inches inside the ball, so now I'm, the putter is on this line, my eyes are on this line, so I'm looking over this way at the hole, and I'm missing everything right, thinking I'm all lined up too long. So then what do people do? Well, they start choking down a little bit. Well, unless you put a piece of tape or something to help you to remember always to put your hands in the same place, you have all kinds of variations going. I don't know why people continually fight having a little bit shorter putter. I think it's like 6'3" or 6'4". With normal arm lengths, a 35-inch putter was probably not a bad choice. But if you're under that, chances are it's too long for you. Now, if you have an older putter, the problem you run into is back in the olden days, putters weighed less. Today, putters, you're probably looking at anywhere from 350 to 380 grams, unless it's like a super heavy putter for different use, longer grip and everything, 38-inch and giving me some feel of rotating that putter head through. But for the most part, back in the olden days, they were 315 to 330. Well, if I make that short, it gets to be head light, and I might get a swing weight of around B2, B3. Now, that might be a problem. Okay, so don't go chopping your putter down without first gripping it there and playing around with it. And if you putt really well with it, don't chop it down. Just keep doing that. Okay. But one thing we've talked about this, and I apologize. We tried to do some video of, the simple steps for building a golf club. And it was the day we tried to do it where Josh and I could both be here. It was like 110 and the camera overheated in the third minute. And it took 45 minutes for it to cool down enough so that we could continue. And we didn't continue because we weren't going to wait 45 minutes. But one of the things I wanted you to think about, build your own. I was doing just a little quick Google research. Let's see, where did I throw that? Wait a minute. One other thing. I didn't talk about wedges. Wedges are still the shortest clubs in your bag. Now, most of the companies, if it's a pitching wedge loft, which is somewhere between 40 and 46 degrees, they would build them at 35 3/4 inch. An A wedge, okay, around 50 degrees, 48 to 50 degrees, 50, maybe 51, 35 and a half. Sand wedge, 54 to 56 degrees usually, 35.25. Lob wedge, 58 to 62, 35 inches. Again, you're building the 4 irons, the 5 irons, and some of these sets, you don't have an option. You have to get those. You're building those for somebody who is 6'4", 6'5", and you're giving a wedge length for somebody who, generally speaking, I would be using those numbers, especially a lob wedge, for somebody who's about 5'6". A lot of people would benefit from having a longer wedge. Today, I was walking my grandkids to school, talking with one of the crossing guards. He played professional basketball in Mexico and in Europe. And we were talking about, and he was saying, my wedge game is atrocious. Well, he was a guard. He was probably about 6'4". And I said, do you ever thin them? Or, yeah, I'm really good at thinning them. And I said, well, that's because they're probably too short for you. Doug, in the last podcast, talking about his son, lengthened his wedges. His wedge game improved dramatically. Doug lengthened his wedges. His wedge game improved dramatically. Again, I am 5'9 3/4. All of you will be able to recite that soon. How long is my pitching wedge? Same length as my 9-iron, 36 inches. How long is my A wedge? 35 3/4. How long is my sand wedge? 35 3/4. How long is my lob wedge? 35 3/4. Why? Well, number one, if I need less, I can choke down. My swing weight is D7, D8, D9. If I need less, I can choke down. But the bigger thing is, I usually choke down about 1/4 inch, depending on the circumstance, if I'm not taking a full swing. If I'm taking a full swing, I grip it at my normal length. And I frustrate the heck out of the guy I play a ton of golf with, because I can always seem to get up and down from just about anywhere. And it's all based on posture. I have good posture at address. I had a sand shot recently where I was on my left knee, my right knee or right leg was turned sideways along the upper lip of the trap, and I stuck it about 7 feet from the hole. And I was probably about 45 feet away. And I had to clear probably a 2-foot lip that was about 4 feet in front of me, 3 feet in front of me. If I would have had a 35-inch, and I used the lob wedge to do that, if I had a 35-inch lob wedge, I don't know that I could have hit the ball. It was too short. I have at times tried to play a 35-inch lob wedge, and I will thin it more times than not. It just does not feel long enough to me. I feel like I'm hunched over too far. And again, at 68 years old, holding that spine angle like that for a smooth, slow swing, not as easy as holding it at a 35 3/4 inch lob wedge. So, thing to think about. Like especially if you're over, 5'10", 5'11", lengthening your wedges half an inch, at least, maybe at 3/4 inch, depending on, but using the 5 3/4 maybe as your shortest club. And it's okay to keep the others the same. I've been doing that for years. Let's see. The thing that I was doing a little bit of research. So you can buy yourself a $130 to $165 a club iron set. Those are going to be cast heads. They're going to be just standard grip, everything else standard. Cast head is going to cost you, if you went and bought it, somewhere between $15 and maybe $30 tops. I was interested, one of the companies, I was looking at some of their shaft options, and they were like, you could put an arrowhead, an Aerotech shaft in. Aerotech shaft is only a $50 upgrade. Or you could put a Project X shaft in. It's only a $10 upgrade. Do you know what the cost difference, if I just went and bought one on the open market? Cost difference, Project X is around $50. The Aerotech is around $60. So it's a $10 difference, but they're willing to charge me $30 more to put the Aerotech in over the Project X. In fact, it was $40 more. Interesting. Why? I have no idea. But I could put an Aerotech shaft in, which is pretty expensive graphite shaft, put a grip on it. I might be at $90 for that $130 to $165 club. If the head was at like $15 to $20, okay, I'm at $80. That's a lot less than $165. If I use a hollow body or a thin face, that higher coefficient of restitution ball is supposed to come off of it faster. Again, it still has to reach the same limits as a driver face. The head is going to cost me about $60. And say, again, I'm going to put an expensive Aerotech shaft in, $50. A grip, I'm at about $120. If I put in a nice nip-on shaft, I might be pretty close to like $95 versus $180 to $210 for the same type of club. I have a GolfWorks hollow body 6-iron. Love that thing. I haven't convinced myself I want to build another set of clubs, but if I did, I would have no trouble going to that. That's $54. It would replace my my PXGs. Driver, $649 was the average cost. You can buy a driver head for $80 to $180, generally speaking. The shaft, you got these big upgrade shafts. Generally speaking, they're gonna, let's say you put a graphite design shaft in one of their high-end shafts, they're going to charge you usually around $350 to put that shaft in. When I had my golf shop, that would cost me probably in the neighborhood of $125 to $150 for that $350 golf shaft. They're making a lot of money on just putting a different shaft in there. And again, the shaft, believe it or not, the shaft does not communicate to the golf ball and say, hey, I cost $350. You're going a long way. Generally speaking, what are you looking for in a shaft? The way it feels. Okay. You're looking for a weight. You're looking for the way it transfers the vibration, because that's what the shaft does. It's not like it has a brain and it knows how to hold on to the bitter end. It doesn't know how to do that. There are some really interesting, cool shafts that are out there now that Tom Wishan has designed, like $40 for a pretty high-tech shaft. It doesn't have to cost you 4 arms, 3 legs to build a driver. Okay. You can build a driver for, if you were going with high-end stuff for whatever reason, you could build a nice driver for $250, $300. Putters, like my special head cover. Tom Wishan putter. Looks like that. I took it out the very first day. Again, I have a very, very, very nice Kronos putter. I love that putter. But it's starting, the PVD is starting to come off, and I'm kind of giving it a rest. I was having a little bit of issue with, it's very head heavy, and the shaft doesn't allow me to get a whole lot of weight down it because it's a graphite Fujikura shaft, and it's a heavy graphite Fujikura shaft. And so I wasn't able to counterbalance it enough, and I wanted to go to a lighter grip, and it was not working out. So I put this thing together. First time out, I think I had 24 putts. Now, yes, it doesn't have a milled face, but I hit slightly up on the ball, and the ball rolls wonderful. Today I had a bad putting day. I think I had 28 putts, made about a 30-foot birdie putt, had a couple others that did 360s and spun out from 10 to 15 feet, missed a couple of birdie putts because I hit a stone on the green. My putter, $60. I love it. You can go buying, like Golf Works has some heads around 100, anywhere from 150 down. My Wishan putter I love. I shared with you a while ago, I built a putter for the student I worked with. I think that was $29, including the shaft. You don't have to spend 4 arms and 6 legs. Now, what you want to look for is something pleasing to the eye, something you can line up with. I love all the lines that this thing gives me. I don't know if I showed that part. Let me take my fancy head cover off. But I have a little lines, little track right here to look at, and they line up with the 3 different alignments. And I have no trouble putting this online and making putts. And again, doesn't have to cost 6 arms, 4 legs. Don't have to, put my house as collateral on my putter. Hybrids, hybrid head. I built a hybrid for Bill. What was the head? The head cost with tariffs, it was $55. We put in what was the shaft? The shaft was on sale. It was an NVS, or 2 NVS. I think I paid like $45, $50 for it, plus the grip, plus some weights and stuff. So I think I probably had a whole $125, $115 into the thing, including all the shipping. He loves it. He has some expensive TaylorMade, and he hits it better than he hits one of his TaylorMades. He hits the other TaylorMade really well too, but I could call out the specs. We wanted it a half degree open to match the head that he hits best. The head that he doesn't hit quite as well, it's about half degree closed or so. What's his tendency? Goes left. But again, it works wonders for him. And again, how much does it cost? Like a third of the cost of the average hybrid. Same thing with fairway woods. When I built Josh's fairway wood, I think his fairway wood head, what do we have in that? With the shaft, probably about $95. It was a birthday present for him versus $300, $350 for a fairway wood. And we could build it to the length that we wanted to build it to, and we could internally weight it. So the thing I want you to think about, when they tell you this head will make the ball go faster, if it is, it's kind of like the old, what was the company? Was it Adams? There was a driver head that they showed the commercial of the wind going over the top of the face, and it was more aerodynamic, and the ball's club head speed was faster. Yeah, it was probably about 0.1, 0.2 miles an hour faster, maybe 1 mile an hour faster. I'll get you 2 yards, 2.5 yards. 0.2 inches, but they weren't lying. They could show you the wind tunnel and the speed of the cut through the air faster. The thing you have to understand, all the limits have been reached. Why do they keep building them longer? with the hope that somehow you'll hit it and be able to generate more club head speed. Again, most people do not. I have measured hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people's club head speeds each year with their 46-inch driver versus the 44-inch driver that I was recommending. And I would say unless you were the 69, 75-year-old guy who saw him and then came through, they probably lost a mile an hour of club head speed to 2 miles an hour. The average person, because the weight is farther away from their hands, they're trying to swing it harder. They lose the angle, so the club is traveling fast out here somewhere. The golf ball is sitting down on the ground or on a tee going, I am not impressed. By the time you get to the ball, you've actually slowed down your swing, or because it's 46 inches away and you're trying to find it, where's that ball at? Well, how far away is that? It doesn't promote a lot of confidence that if I swing hard, I'm not going to miss it. But at 44, 44 and a quarter, 44 and a half, it's easy to hit, feel comfortable. For probably only from 1950 through 1990, drivers were 43 inches until I think it was Titleist came out with having to make it 44 inches because the swing weight was too light when they put that newfangled graphite into the end of that shaft or head. And rather than building a heavier head for graphite shafts, they said, why? We'll just make it an inch longer. And then it just took off from there. Within 4 or 5 years, USGA started to talk about limiting because they were, you had the killer bees. They were like 48-inch drivers. You had to stand somewhere on the side of the tee box and put your bulb near the far marker, and to have enough room for you to swing that club and hit the golf ball if you could. So hope and pray that your 2026 is off to a good start, and hopefully Josh will be able to join us. I'm going to be we have a gentleman who was willing to tell his story about getting into building some clubs after never having built a club. I kind of walked them through a couple of things online. If you're looking for somebody to, for me to make a video about the steps in making a golf club, again, I would be happy to do that. Nobody has emailed me saying, yes, Gene, we would love you to do that for us. But if you would love me to do that, I'd be happy to do that. Just let me know. And again, if it's one person, maybe I'll just send them a video. If it's 100 of you, okay, definitely will make a video. Appreciate all those new subscribers on YouTube. Thank you for that. And again, I just thank you from the bottom of my heart for the number of people that have decided to tune in, listen up. And as we kind of challenge the status quo of the golf industry, hopefully you're learning to decipher some of the things that they're telling you and want the game of golf to be fun. Again, I play with a lot of people and I watch a lot of people with pretty decent swings struggle mightily with this stuff that they have. And it's, you listen to them all day long. I did this. I must have. No, you didn't do any of those things. It was the fact that the club was too long or the club was too light and you're swinging out of your shoes because there's no resistance there and you don't feel the head. I can tell you don't feel the head just by the way you're waggling it and kind of trying to find where's the head at. So God bless. Hope Sammy and Emma, hope you love listening to this and hearing your name again. And we'll talk to you soon and keep hitting them long and straight.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to email us. In order for us to continue equipping you with great knowledge and content, consider blessing our show financially by checking out the links in the description below. See you next time on Club Fitting Chronicles.